You land a low, it works. A few seconds later, you use the same low again, it works again. So, naturally, you use it a third time. Low parry, launch, round over. You sit there wondering, how did they know? But the truth is, they didn't predict your move, they just predicted you. Because every decision you make teaches your opponent something. The question is, are you teaching them how to beat you, or are you teaching them the wrong lesson? Welcome back to How Winners Think. One of the biggest misconceptions in Tekken is that becoming unpredictable means learning more moves, more strings, more setups, more mix-ups. But that's not what makes great players difficult to fight. Elite competitors aren't unpredictable because they know more options. They are unpredictable because they know when not to repeat success. Today, we are exploring why habits quietly expose your game plan, why winning often creates predictability, and how the strongest competitors constantly stay one step ahead of what their opponent expects. Because in Tekken, your opponent isn't just fighting your character, they are studying your decisions. Imagine you are solving a puzzle. Every new piece gives you a clearer picture. Competitive games work exactly the same way. Every time you attack, every time you defend, every time you move, you are revealing information. Maybe you always sidestep after blocking. Maybe you always jab after heat. Maybe you always use the same low when rounds get close. Individually, those decisions seem harmless. Together though, they create a pattern, and patterns are exactly what experienced players are looking for. Here is something surprising. Winning can make you quite predictable. Just think about it for a moment. If a move works, you'll naturally want to use it again and again. After all, why change something that is working? Because your opponent is learning. The first time, they are surprised. The second time, they are watching. The third time, they are waiting. Success feels safe, but repeated success often becomes a trap. Because what worked once, eventually then becomes expected. Most players believe they are mixing up their offense, but in reality, they are just repeating the same rhythm. Low, mid, throw, backdash, and then repeat. Maybe the moves change, but the timing doesn't. The emotion doesn't. The decision making doesn't. You see, great players don't just recognize attacks, they recognize habits. The pause before you dash, the timing of your sidestep, the moment you become impatient. They are reading the story behind your buttons, not the buttons themselves. The strongest competitors do something fascinating. They interrupt themselves, not because they have to, but because they know someone is watching. Imagine you have conditioned your opponent to expect a low. Now, don't use it. Imagine they expect another throw. Stand still. Imagine they are waiting for another sidestep. Walk forward instead. Elite players don't always change attacks. Sometimes they just simply change expectations, and that's much more harder to read. Here is the goal. Not confusing your opponent once, but confusing them consistently. When your opponent starts thinking, I know what's coming, you change. Now, what happens next is that they hesitate. Now, they second guess themselves. Now, they are the one afraid to commit. Did you notice what just happened? The psychological pressure changed sides. It switched. Because uncertainty doesn't just protect you, it attacks confidence. And confidence is one of the most valuable resources in competitive games. One of the biggest differences, right, between ranked players and tournament competitors is that tournament players think one layer deeper. They are not normally asking, what should I do next? They are asking, what does my opponent think that I am about to do? Then they decide whether to confirm that expectation or destroy it. That's real unpredictability, not random decisions, just deliberate ones. Because random players are chaotic, great players are intentional. There is a big/massive difference in those two. During your next ranked session, every time something works twice, just pause for a minute. Before you repeat it, ask yourself, if I were my opponent, what would I expect right now? Then I want you to choose something different. Not because the first option actually just stopped working, but because your opponent has actually started to learn from you. Okay? The goal isn't constant change. The goal is staying one decision ahead. Every round is a conversation. Every button says something. Every habit thus teaches something. The strongest competitors always understand this. They don't just think about what they are doing. They think about what their opponent is also learning. Because once your opponent believes that they have solved the puzzle, you then give them a completely different one to learn. That's how elite players stay unpredictable, not by having endless options, but by controlling the information that they reveal. If you remember one thing from this video, I want you to remember this. Do not repeat what works. Repeat what your opponent isn't expecting. The next time you land the same setup twice, resist the temptations to use it again. Instead, I want you to ask yourself, what story have I been telling my opponent? And is it time to change it? Because the strongest competitors don't just win exchanges, they control expectations. This has been how winners think. Until next time, the hardest player to beat isn't the one with the best combos. It's the one you can never truly read. Think first.